so crowned, knotted shadows groan as naked dreams bow down before the unholy one. She walks a path untouched by prayer, unknown to comfort, a path given to anything but love. Along this way, the witch queen comes. The wind is cold, but the queen cares not, stalking her wool, inhaling souls long sought. The soldier's life leaking away, gazes with fogging eyes, praying his queen will say, "Worry not, brave one, your blessed ruler is here." Instead she breathes his final breath, leaving him to die, deserted in death. The sanctified ones, forced to kneel, allow the witch queen to reveal the horror of her fury in darkness apart. One nod wink to her minions and the godly weep. "I need more!" She screams and thunder booms at this demand. "Hurt them! Longer! Louder! Make it more than they can stand!" The cup of blood raised to wicked lips pours down her throat till it runs over cheek and chin. The queen throws the goblet, wipes her mouth and cries, "I have no sin."
Hi everyone. Welcome to the Porthole to Justice, the window to the truth. Lotus, are you still with us? Are you still here? Oh, okay.
That was a very intimate song.
That's Patricia Daniel, Zeph Daniel's wife. And
it's a very interesting verse there. I think it's just like the queen.
yeah, the witch queen, yeah?
Yeah, you know, I'm always astounded, and this just goes to show you how stupid they are about America. I'm always astounded that when the grocery store, how they...
We're having interference. Hold on. Uh-oh, what's going on? Are you leaving me? Lotus?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. It's just...
You can hear me now?
Yeah, it was just kind of cutting out a little bit.
Okay, well, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I want to make sure we have good sound, so let me know if we start having any more interference, because we've always had those issues. But I'm always astounded when you go to the grocery store, and there's always like 3 or 4 trash mags, and they're all talking about the Queen of England and the heirs, and like, we care. Like we don't like you. We've never liked Britain. We've never liked them. They're thieving criminals. We don't care about your king and queen. We don't like kings and queens. And it's astounding to me that the Skype, are we good? It just said we reconnected. Are you there?
I'm here.
That was weird.
I just can't.
Okay. Yep,
I can't man all of the equipment and hold the iPad at the same time.
No, because I just want to make sure you can still hear me, because it just said it disconnected us and reconnected us. But I just am astounded that they always are inundating us with crap from Britain. It's like, we aren't your colony anymore. Okay, that's our mind, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like they think we care what happens to the Queen of England. Who in the United States gives a crap about the Queen of England? We don't like you. We haven't liked you for a couple hundred years now. Why do they think Americans care anything about false prophets and false, people who present themselves as kings and queens and rulers of the world? I don't unelected. I mean, it's astounding to me, but that's just that's them disclosing for you, oh, we have to keep the colony of where, like they really still think they own us. Mm-hmm. And in their little paper fiction, they do in their mind. And that's what we've discussed, this whole fictitious reality and this paper fiction that persists, that has persisted since 1776, that we won the physical war, but the paper war of being vassals in a feudalistic banking system are still there. And that's what we are hopefully going to cure in the next year, the next 6 months. I see that. What are you showing me?
I finished my attachment to my filing.
Awesome.
And I'm just showing you I did my homework.
You did do your homework. I do see that. Good for you. Good for you. The thing that people have to comprehend about the world of today is you can no longer rely upon licensed state people, such as attorneys and doctors, to do your work for you, particularly attorneys, because in doing that, we've allowed ourselves to be subjugated to their masters, which are not us. So if you want to get any concept of remedy or relief in law, in their at-law system, you can't really have an attorney, and you have to learn how to do things yourself. Mm-hmm. And even when you do, you don't get any remedy because of the monopolistic criminal enterprises of all the bar unions until you get into the circuit court systems, mm-hmm. which is where we're at. And I think that when it comes to Clay's case, they are so, I don't know, they're so screwed that the circuit courts just really don't know what to do, and they're balking. And that's what I wanted to talk about, because... Well,
have we got proof of life? It's been...
No, we do not. And I just put a motion for clarification and a request for status, because we had we appealed to the circuit court for, again, the same repeated failures of a second United States District Court, this one in Indiana, who has tried to apply the Rucker-Feldman doctrine to a child custody case. And that's, you and I both know, that's their fallback. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you research the Rucker-Feldman doctrine, they only pertain to complaints. Okay. Complaints are not claims. Those are two different classes of action in law. A complaint is something that is of a monetary damage, a trespass, something that can be fixed and resolved by monetary compensation. A claim is not a trespass. It is a tort. A claim is something that cannot be fixed and cured and remedied or relieved by mere compensation. It is a torture. It is an act that is of a criminal nature that is unfixable, never returned to its original state, because you have tortured the flesh, or the soul, or the child, a family. So it's very specific in the language that governs Rucker-Feldman doctrines that they're already disclosing to you that they consider the actions of the state in custody cases to be strictly of a monetary nature, because the courts are saying, well, we're immune from prosecution and we have immunity from all these acts in complaints, which is monetary instruments. So they've kind of exposed themselves in that regard as well. So they're applying a doctrine that is specifically for relief, which is monetary, versus remedy, which is criminal. And, you're looking for someone to get put in jail for violating the law and creating a tort against you. So they're applying the Rucker-Feldman doctrine in as a monetary, saying, well, the states are immune from monetary compensation, or from being monetarily attached for whatever purpose. And we're saying, well, this isn't a monetary claim. We just want it back. that a crime has clearly been committed.
Mm-hmm.
Stop messing around and give us the kid. And so we went to the circuit court after the district court, a second district court, on the appeal from the actual cause of action from the termination of custody. We went to another district court because we could. We had a claimant who was an aunt, who was a tenant of Indiana, and haven't already proven that the district court of Ohio was, two of them are, we have two courts in Ohio that dismissed a child habeas and a mother habeas, continuation of state habeas in the federal system through special motion. They dismissed two habeas corpuses under Rucker-Feldman. Okay, they dismissed the habeas corpus of a mother as a continuation for unlawful imprisonment into the federal jurisdiction for substantial rights, for conspiracy against substantial rights. They dismissed it under Rucker-Feldman. So we have in one state, the state of Ohio, corporate state, two district courts that dismissed a federal child habeas case and a state habeas case that was conveyed and continued into the federal system under the declaration that her substantial rights were violated in a conspiratorial act, process. Her and her sons, they dismissed both of those under Rucker-Feldman. So
and have they acknowledged it?
No, the circuit court has sat on that for months. That circuit court, that's the Sixth Circuit of Ohio. But you have to wrap your head around the fact that they're trying to say that if we violated your substantial rights and we bring proof upon a habeas in the federal district courts that the state committed crimes, actual crimes, mm-hmm. and conspired to imprison this mother and conspire to steal this child, that the district courts are trying to give the state of Ohio this carte blanche immunity under pecuniary interest, meaning, well, they're immune in complaints. We're giving them complaint immunity, which means you can't attach them monetarily. And I'm like, I don't care about your money. They're criminals. This is a claim of a Title 18 violation. So they're trying to use this broad banking, brush to even give them immunity and dismiss habeas corpuses, okay? A habeas corpus is when you demand that this court intervene in this cause of action because these lower courts, these agents for this state or this county violated the substantial rights, the constitutional substantial rights, affirmed and unalienable in the seizure, the kidnapping, the incarceration, whatever. Mm. Courts are saying, well, that habeas is dismissible because they're immune financially. You understand? It doesn't even pair up. There's no parity there. Mm-hmm. And so they did it again in Indiana. So we actually have three district courts for the United States territorial courts, which are United States courts. We're not in state courts anymore. We're in the United States Civil Jurisprudence Administrative Forum. So in the federal higher levels, there's only one court above the circuit courts at this point, the Supreme Court within the United States proper. We have two actions sitting, one in the 6th and one in the 7th. So we already knew that the district courts of the state of Ohio were completely corrupted, that they were in overt warring against the Constitution, dismissing habeas corpuses under the Rucker-Feldman doctrine. Okay, that's an absurdity. That is an open criminal act. Okay, mm-hmm. to try to convey immunity, commercial immunity for actions of people under the color of law. That is a crime in and of itself. That's warring against the Constitution. Those administrators, that administrator, those quote judges should be tried and for treason. Okay. So then we go to Indiana because we have an aunt who is a tenant of Indiana who should have been given the child the day that he was abducted by the state, mm-hmm. By CPS. He was stolen. He was kidnapped by an agent without a warrant, with no issuance of an emergency cause. She had no warrant when she took this kid. None. No order, no court order whatsoever.
No court order, no sign
affidavit. And in the county, the police and the CPS are just having little hearings in people's living rooms and stealing babies and telling them. I mean, this CPS worker just told the maternal aunt that she wasn't going to give her the kid because she can't have him because of this rule and this rule. I'm like, the woman's not a judge. She sat there and adjudicated as though she had some administrative authority to deny this woman custody of a child that was of her flesh. She didn't go before a judge. She decided in the parking lot of a police department where the police had left this child on the side of the road and a stranger was directed to bring the child to the police station, that this CPS worker had the authority to withhold the child and keep this child for herself without a court order, with nothing. This is what they're doing. Mm-hmm. We have CPS workers literally stealing babies in parking lots and in people's living rooms. Colluding with police by hidden orders from prosecutors with no court orders. None. That's just kidnapping, okay? That's kidnapping. When someone seizes your property without a warrant, without a court order, that's a lawful court order for emergency seizure under this act or whatever, it is kidnapping.
It must be, if they do have a warrant, it must be signed by a judge, a wet signature by a judge. Right. If it's not signed and it's just a document by a CPS supervisor, that's not a legitimate warrant.
Okay, let's put it this way. What if I saw you in the park doing something that I didn't like with your child? Do I have the power to go kidnap that kid and refuse to give him back to you? And to say, no, I'm going to determine that this child is in danger right now and that you don't have any authority to have him. And I just walk out of the park with them. That's essentially what CPS workers are doing. They don't have any power of adjudication. They're not judges. They're not elected officials, even if we went through the process, whether what we're doing is even electing these people, being that they're selected by polls. But they have no grant of law to come steal babies out of your house without a warrant, nothing. They don't. That's called unlawful seizure if it were a car. Okay, can a cop come take your car? He can seize it and put it in a holding cell, right? But he has to have a statutory provision for it, right? Mm-hmm. CPS workers don't have a statutory provision for seizing babies when they aren't when the parents aren't trying to kill each other. And there's limitations on this, and these CPS workers don't have the power to adjudicate your rights, okay? They don't have the power to say, no, we're not going to give you this baby that's been in your care and custody because I consider you unfit. Well, who are you, lady? Who are you? She's nobody. Her name's Mary Legg. Mary Legg. That's her name, Mary Legg.
Worker.
She stole a baby. She is a state CPS worker, apparently. We assume she is. Mm-hmm. So a woman named Mary Legg stole a baby in a parking lot of a police station because the police directed that strangers bring the baby that they left at the side of the road, they did, to their police department as though he was just left in the middle of nowhere consciously by the family. Do you understand the constructive fraud? Mm-hmm. And they went, oh my gosh.
And they contrive a story so that it appears as though they acted in a way that was so angelic and this baby.
Yeah, but that's actually contrived fraud. That's contrived. that's actually planning,
Oh.
Yeah, we're Superman. We keep babies at sides of roads. But see, they didn't want, because then they don't have to even act like, they don't even have to act like there's a baby in the arrest warrant. And they have this habit of doing this in this municipality in Greenfield. In fact, we have a case where with the same family, they walked into this house in the middle of the night, knocked on the door. It's like 3 a.m. and the aunt's like, what's going on? He comes in, he goes, we're going to take these babies and you're not supposed to have babies in here. You're a drug house. She's like, what are you talking about? And she's not, and they literally see 6 children in this household, wake them up in the middle of the night. They're sleeping. He calls CPS. CPS is like, we got to figure out where to put these babies because you're a drug house. She's like, what are you talking about? I tell the aunt, I said, go get the police report. Guess what? There's no mention of him arresting six children and 2 adults. He arrested them because to be arrested means you just stop their travels. she said, well, I'll call the aunt. The policeman goes, no, I'm not going to let you I'm not going to let you give these kids to anybody but CPS. That's an arrest. So this little ignorant of the law municipal corporate enforcement agent, a municipal officer, walked into this house under false pretenses and arrested 6 children and 2 adults, and proceeded to hold them unlawfully without due process of law, without cause, and refused to allow them to leave or give the children to the parents. And then CPS walks in and tells them what they have to do, and they have their little ex parte unlawful adjudication of these people's rights to convey property and children and control the property of their children and their grandchildren, their nieces, whatever. And they have their own little private hearing. And guess what? None of that's in the police report. That's a crime.
You know, I know you're familiar with this case. It's called Vreeken versus Hardwick.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
The right to lie.
Right.
The CPS social workers' right to lie case.
Right.
And
yeah, they don't have a right to lie. It's the same way that the states aren't immune when they commit crime. Okay? But see, that's the RICO. That's the Sherman Antitrust Act violations.
Yeah, and so, I tell people, you know, online on Facebook that, look, you know, we have a human trafficking bill that Donald Trump put out, and it includes RICO, and this is RICO.
Yeah, international RICO. And
international
RICO.
Corporations, Child Protective Services.
Whether operating foreign or domestic.
Yeah.
Is what it says. It's one of its very first executive orders, you know. I mean, he hit the ground. In fact, I think it might be, if not the ground running. That was like his second executive order.
Yeah, people. I sit there and I tell people this, and they're like, "Well, I haven't seen him do anything yet." Well, he just amended.
Well, that's because I watch CNN, and I believe that's a propaganda machine. You know, I just had a conversation with a I've known her since going on 30 years, and she just, you know, thinks Trump is the biggest fascist ever. I said, that's because you watch Nazi news. You know, it's like, I'm like, we are in Nazi Germany. Imagine we are Nazi Germany. We are the new fascist empire of the world. The United States is, not America. The United States Corporation is a multinational fascist coup instrument that for once in probably the last 120 some odd years has a POTUS in it that is actually going to prevent it from being used unlawfully, you know, cleaning house, say. And it's fascist. It's run by, it's completely controlled by one union, the bar union, esquires of states. They don't care. They all have the same construct. Well, they're controlled.
He's not, what is it? He's not gentrified, Lotus.
What does that mean? Does that mean he's not cleansed himself of everything but elitism? I don't understand what
he's du jour.
He is du jour. He is very du jour. But to me, did someone actually call him not gentrified? Because to me, that's a compliment. I mean, you know, if someone said you're not gentrified, I'd be like, thank you. You know, like, thank you. I actually identify with the common man. Yes, thank you very much. Because gentrification is a contrived oppression of an area where they intentionally blight it so they can steal the land for cheap and run out all the locals. I mean, gentrification is when we had a gentrification here, you know, whenever I was in Columbus, Ohio, the Ohio State University used to have this bar row, you know, this row of bars that were very renowned for, you know, all the alumni. And this group called Campus Partners came in, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And they were a bunch of white guys who graduated from OSU, and they came up with this new city management plan. And what it included was basically the city conspiring with landowners to allow the local type, you know, low rent tenancy to become fallow, to the point of the people's porches were falling in that were renting, and the city wouldn't come in and fine them to keep the property up. So the city conspired to not enforce, again, this is what statutes
and vacate the properties.
Right. Right. So then the city, by the time the city got involved, they actually condemned the properties, which then the landowners were then able to, then this campus partner group were able to go in and talk the city into purchasing the land, So that's gentrification, is when they actually
we're actually seeing this happen in a lot of
That's what gentrification is conspiracy between local corporate interests and the city to, as Aristotle says, apply statutes, codes, and regulations with arbitrary and capricious fashion so that they can blight an area and steal the land. Because even still, like let's say you were a land holding tenant, meaning let's say you didn't rent the property, you actually had a mortgage on the property. Well, if 80% of the houses around you, which happens a lot in large campus large university areas, if 80% of the houses around you are owned by the same 2 or 3 landlords, and you're a landholder, if they conspire with these organizations to let their lands go fallow and get top dollar from the city, and you're trying to keep your property up, you're kind of brought into that big swoop. So you're sitting there, you lose equity. You're trying to keep your property up while these large land holding banks and corporations and property management companies conspire to let their lands go fallow, and then your property value plummets, right? And you get nothing, and you're forced. The region would be condemned and purchased up. See, and that's what they do. That's exactly gentrification is a prime example of what Aristotle talks about. The purpose of statutes are for. That statutes are there to be applied arbitrarily and capriciously in an inequity, meaning unequitably, between one type of person versus another to create inequity. That is exactly what Aristotle says in his Nomenclatia, what statutes are for. And gentrification is a prime example of the abuses of statutes and the inherent corruptions of our monopolistic legal system we have now with these corrupt bar unions, these RICO criminal organizations conspiring.
And so that's why you hear me kind of like giggle. I know I giggle in like inappropriate times because it's so ridiculous that he's not gentrified. Well,
that just showed them to be like elitist morons. I mean, I just don't even. Do they even understand what they just declared themselves? What? Yeah. Okay, so
I don't know. I don't even know. I don't think so.
So you have to be gentrified to be a POTUS now? Well, isn't that just a declaration of elitism in the constructs of the United States Corporation? But they sit here and expose themselves every time they open their mouths. Anymore, it's just like, okay, well, that was just really revealing how dumb you are. You just hear people. I remember, and I first started noticing how the mentality of our governance, particularly in D.C., when a long time ago, and this was before the 2009 crash. This was in the mid 2000s, and they were debating. It's basically the big banks were trying to route out all of the what is it? It's a Wonderful Life, that type of cooperative banking. They were trying to force these types of non-corporate banks to have to collect ATM fees for the utilization of the EFT processes of the Federal Reserve, even whenever they were small cooperative banks. And they were having federal, people were giving testimony before Congress. And this president of this, what's it called when they're types of bank? They're not banks; they're actually cooperatives. But this president of one of these local cooperatives was like, "We don't want to charge our members money because we have a cooperative, and we kind of have so basically you have a cumulative trust versus the bank owning your money, right?" And the senator goes, "Well, who goes?" He goes. Most of our members withdraw on the average on their ATM draws only $20 to $40, and they do that a couple times a month. So we would be charging them like $10 or $15 for these minor things because they wanted to raise to like 100 or something. And this senator goes, who goes to the bank and only withdraws $20? And I thought, you're really stupid. I was like, most Americans go to the bank and only withdraw $20-$40 because we don't have hundreds in the bank.
Most Americans right now, Lotus, don't even have $1,000 in the bank.
Exactly. And so this senator's like, I never go to the bank and just withdraw $20. And I'm thinking, that's because you're living off the dole of your private interest and probably have a couple million in an offshore account.
Yeah.
That's the mentality of the people in D.C. because they are so morally vacant and corrupted with their gentrification that they don't even understand that the common American goes to the bank regularly to withdraw $20 because that's maybe all they have in the bank. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this was 10 or 15 years ago when this was the mentality. And they probably have the same mentality about our children. Well, who has a house where they have 5 kids and only 3 rooms? Because, CPS will tell you, you have to have, they have all these rules regulating how you run your family. You can't have this many rooms. You have to have a house with this many rooms in it if you have this many kids. And you have to have this many, it's like, who are you people? Who authorized you to micromanage our familial associations and the way that we raise our children? Mm-hmm. And then what we teach our children. See, I grew up in a craft-oriented, a craftsman family of generational carpenters, just like a mason, a carpenter, people who worked the land, farmers. You used to teach your children your craft. That's what they were taught. Now they're taught false lies about the history of our country and the history of the world, which are complete and utter lies. That's not the history. The history they teach you of this country is a lie. It's a 100% balls out lie. It's just lies. Mm-hmm. And they're telling you, you have to send your children to these schools. You have to allow us to miseducate them. You have to allow us to indoctrinate them. You have to allow us
to vaccinate them.
Have to allow us, this inhumane. No, we don't. We don't have to allow you anything. They think that they are our rulers and not serving at the behest and will of the people. And I think that they're getting a very sharp and awakening to this just arrogant and ignorant ecclesiastic elitist mentality that a small group of people can determine for the totality of the American countryside how we can raise our children, what we can teach them, and what we can do with them. Because I'm going to tell you, when we get Clay back, he's never going into state schooling. They will never, ever, ever have possession of him again in any way, shape, or form. No state instrument will ever hold custody, even temporarily, in a school fashion of this child, because they have already damaged him with their mentality and what they think is right and wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's evil and heinous to think that you can kidnap a child at the side of a road. I don't care what you think about their parents. Mm-hmm. Children have rights. Children in and of themselves have rights. I don't care what their parents did. And that goes back to, the blood debt that is declared unconstitutional and not allowed by the Constitution. You have to understand that that's the primary violation right here. They are selling our children to pay their debts. That's a crime punishable by death by our law, as stated in Exodus and Deuteronomy. If you kidnap a man and sell him for the purposes of paying your debts, that is a crime punishable by death by our law. These people sell our children to steal their sustenance to pay their debts. Their debts, not ours. They're not of us. They're foreign. Yeah. They are a foreign trading corporation run by international bankers. It's not run by the American de jure Congress. It's not run by the American people. It's run right now by a whole bunch of pedophiles and pederasts and baby traffickers who have been selling our babies to whoever will pay top dollar to pay their debts and for their own personal gain and lucre. That's what we have. Those people need to be put to death. That is the law. That's actually in Title 18 as the law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, we've talked about how they have all these private indictments. Well, they better start getting public, and they better start hanging some people, because we're not going to allow this to be swept under the rug. The American people at large need to understand the crimes that have been committed against them in mass, because if they don't, then they'll just do it again in 10 years, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
If the American people in mass are not made to understand the inherent corruptions of their government and how it came to be so corrupted in facts of law and a historical record, then we're going to repeat it. And that's why they want everything secret now. Well, I'm not down for secret, and I'm not going to authorize secret indictments. And I understand the desire to cast a broader net, but this needs to be disclosed publicly and openly in its most ugly detail. And if they fail to do that, then in my mind, they are failing in their fiduciary duty to protect the American people from future abuses.
I think we're still actively at war, and
Oh, absolutely.
Some of these people may be, we don't know. I mean, some of these people may be agreeing to cooperate and are allowed.
Yes, they
are allowed to be at home in home arrest and wear.
Yes, that's what I understand. That the ones that have actually. Yes.
I'm speculating, but that's the thing. Everybody, for me in the porthole to justice, I've been profiling indictments and convictions for quite some time on this issue, as you're well aware.
Right.
And, for me personally, having that blog, I've gotten so much attention recently. And a lot of people are like, well, hey, you need to publish this. And I'm like, there's no names. What am I going to publish? There's no names
you can't.
yet.
Well, and if you publish it and it's not truth, then you're subject to, libel, slander. I mean, it's all hearsay. It's all hushy hush. But that's my point. It needs to stop being hush hush.
It does. I agree. But on the other hand, we need to consider that there's probably negotiations going on in cooperation, and some of these people that are agreeing to cooperate may have negotiated home arrest.
You do realize that this legal system can do whatever it wants, but if we demand that they give them to us in the law, they must.
In the law,
so they
in law.
Yeah.
But, I mean, look at how they've perverted the law. I mean,
I know, and we saw this at Nuremberg.
Yeah,
I mean everything that was contrived in Nazi Germany, as far as and people talk about the Jews. It wasn't Jews. It was the class called asocials. Research the history. The Nazis called up and went and took all the asocials, meaning those people who didn't agree with their fascist ideology, were all rounded up and all put in camps. Okay? Mm-hmm. Not just, in fact, very few Jews were put in camps. It was mostly gypsies, homosexuals, artists, philosophers, the belligerent people of the time who were talking about the fascism that was going on. They rounded up basically everybody who was not in agreement with their Nazi, fascist, Ashkenazi, Babylonian slave trade mindset, and put them in camps and killed them and disappeared them. Mm-hmm. It was a coup. It was a military and judicial coup, because the judiciary of Germany said they could do it. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. So these people who talk about the Jews, that's total propaganda. And I'm not saying that there weren't Jews killed, whether they were true Jews, Ashkenazi, or I don't know. But 6 million Jews didn't even exist in Germany at the time. In Europe. These are basic facts that have been, again, Nazi propaganda machine has never been.
It's that divide and conquer. It's that divide and conquer, and it's within every it's within every racial culture that they have these seated divide and conquer tactics. I mean, these are very sophisticated people. They're very intelligent. They know how to scientifically. Right. They know how to scientifically prey on our.
Psyops. They're psyops.
And they'll even post disinformation along with truth.
Oh, totally.
And to achieve a means to an end.
Well, they'll even plant agents within. Well,
it's like, for instance, okay, you know? I recently had to get rid of a very good friend of 6 years, because he was doing this so much. After the Las Vegas shootings, he was like bullying me, bullying my friends, telling me, "Oh, nobody died, and you've got to report this, and you got to report that," and I'm like, "No, dude, I'm not going to do that. I'm not."
Well, you don't know. I mean,
yeah. How disrespectful, for one. The other thing is these staged events have been going on forever, and they want to take people's guns so that it can be okay that they're pederasting our children. Right. It can be okay that they're trafficking us and they're doing Babylonian slave trade in the court. Right. It's all a distraction, and we want your guns.
It's okay that we come into your house and unlawfully arrest you and steal your children and don't even put it in a police report and don't mark it in any form of report whatsoever anywhere in any public record. It's okay that we're operating completely in unlawful, illegal. They're not just unlawful, they're illegal. They're even illegal, people. They're not even following their own legal construct, which in itself is just supposed to be followed by fiduciary duty. Mm-hmm. Because people, that's the thing we talk about. We're in, speaking of plants, I'm so tired of hearing about Anna von Ritz, and I don't care what people say. The woman is an agent for the Pope. And anybody who has any desire to improve the situation and the blight of America,
parents remedy in the courts,
should not listen to anything that woman says, because all she promotes is what will make her master, the Pope, the vicar of Christ, the king of all the banks, the king of kings, better off. That's her job. She's not for America. She's not for Americans. She's not for us getting remedy or relief for our frauds. Anything that comes out of her mouth that she writes is for the purposes of protecting her master, which she has disclosed she serves. So people who conspire and do the things that she says, all you're doing is committing acts of sedition and treason against your country. I'm so tired of people saying, you need to read her. I'm like, no, I don't. I know that she's not of our country. She's disclosed that she's for actually the people that have been conspiring against us since 1054 to undermine our Republican rights. Mm-hmm. Since 1054, the office of the Pope and the Vatican have conspired in treaty with the monarchs of the world to undermine our rights and our desire to have free living without false prophets and false Elohims telling us what God says we can do with our flesh. Mm-hmm. We don't want kings and queens here. Why would anybody follow the suggestions of someone who serves a false prophet and a false Elohim in the name of the Pope? Who? No American I know should be doing that. You're not an American if you do, because we don't believe in the Pope. We don't believe in the Queen. We consider them unrighteous, reprobate publicans that have created vassaldom and perpetuated feudalism for thousands of years. And people are running around. Well, and that's what they do. They even put these agents out there. It's a thing called, when I was a chemist, we called it cigarette science, okay? Whenever the truth of the matter came to be known that cigarettes were being adulterated to make you more addictive, and were designed actually not only to addict you, but what they were adulterating them with to make you more addictive was going to kill you. And that therefore it was they had a product liability issue in cigarettes. Okay, so you have to understand that the cigarette industry, which is the Virginia company, they own most of the plantations of tobacco in the world, knowingly were adulterating cigarettes that would addict you and kill you. Okay, that's called product liability, because if I create a product that knowingly harms the people who buy it, there's a liability there. And in any other industry, it would be shut down and closed down, and they would never be allowed to sell that product again. Okay? When they started having these product liability issues in the 50s and 60s, when these people started dying from the adulterated cigarette industry, the adulterated cigarette industry created entire think tanks of supposed scientists who produced faulty data that was promoting the antithesis of the facts. And the real chemists and scientists knew this was happening, and they called it cigarette science. So the state and the industrial cabal, when they find themselves getting ready to be exposed or having been exposed, they create these false instruments because they have billions of dollars. They can go create an entire multinational corporation that says it's the International Science Analytical Institute. And they'll hire these people who are, quote, chemists and scientists, and they'll start producing fraudulent data, lies about what is truly happening. The real scientists go, well, that's a lie, just like with the 9/11 Truth Commission. The real engineers and the real scientists and the real architects know that those buildings were followed by implosion, that was a controlled implosion. The people who are educated in the sciences, in truth, have told you that. But you have all these false people running around, oh, no, it fell down. No. The real scientists know these things. And it's the same thing with this situation in law. You have all these people that have been put out there intentionally. With Anna von Ritz, she's an open agent for the Pope. Okay, she came out, when she first came out, she said, I serve the Pope. My family has served the Pope for generations. And I guess she thought that was supposed to make people like me want to do business with her or talk to her. All it made me know is that she's not for us. So she's just one example. And if she truly has a righteous bone in her body, she wouldn't be saying the things that she says sometimes, like that some family in Switzerland or whatever owns our seal. No, they don't.
Well, I had this person openly was threatening me because I didn't want to go along with his narrative. And then he was harassing my friends online. Right. And
well, that's the way they do it. That's what they do. I mean, that's the way of these groups of people. They have to silence the asocials. They can't round us up anymore and put us in concentration camps. Just like they couldn't when I went down there and I challenged their authority over me. They couldn't whip me and represent me with the crown of thorns and then crucify me. Yeshua made it so they couldn't do that. But what they could do is they could jump me, they could brutalize me, they could try to murder me in jail and have people attack me and then incarcerate me for a year and then put me in 3 months in the hole for that year. They could do that. See, that's what they're doing. They can't lie. They can't like have open propaganda anymore. So they hide it in all. I mean, every one of the major nations, is owned by like 2 multinational corporations. You know, every instrument of freedom that our founding fathers insisted be preserved, which is free press, the free press, okay, have been squashed. When we do have free press, they are harassed, harangued. Their YouTube channels are pulled. Just like when I was trying to get on today, I have another log on for Skype. Skype's colluding to the lie, saying that this Gmail account has been suspended. It hasn't. They just wanted my phone number so they could run around and track who's using who's got that email account. It's that kind of stuff. It's the constantly crashing our phones, Amelia. It's the constant crash of our computers, the monitoring of everything we say and do. That's fascism, folks. You live in a fascist-controlled world right now. It just looks prettier than what you've been taught it is by historical references. But if you go read the 10 points...
I think a lot of it's AI, too.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: is we can modify the AI. It's not just these are.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Right now, we have a very dark paradigm.
Well, the controllers are very dark, and they have always had. Again, we won the physical war of our independence, but we have not won the paper war of the Babylonian banking that has run the world for thousands of years. And it's not like you can't just flip that kind of stuff on a dime.
It's right now. We got to say, no, we don't want Sharia law in the courts. We don't want Babylonian slave trade. We don't want an economy based on human trafficking. Right. We don't want these paradigms.
Well, it's not even want. We're not going to give you full faith and credit. We're not going to give you credit to use us as a surety for your acts when you don't follow our faith. That's what the term full faith and credit means. When you fulfill your function as the appointed trustees and governors of our estates and chattels and Susticate Trust, when you follow that faithfully, we will issue you credit as the creditors and beneficiaries. When you don't, we're going to revoke it. And so they can either clean up, like, you know, the thing about the people who follow these things that Anna von Ritz promotes is they're trying to crash and just basically nullify 200 years of stuff with information that they don't even understand in the law. And they want to go back to 1812 and just undo all the statutory commercial pillar that thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of Americans have by just doing what they thought was right, even though they may not have been on the right side of the argument. The attorneys have evolved a good pillar of law, of commercial law. The trust law that the American Bar Union members, and when I say American, I mean all the men and women that are attorneys within the Republic states who joined who wanted to become an attorney, a lawyer in their mind, which is not the same, but that's irrelevant, in order to make the world better and to provide justice and help society become more lawful. Those righteous men and women have done their duty and have created statutes that actually are in compliance with our law. Mm-hmm. But they're not following it because they're so corrupted by the people that the powers that be have gotten and appointed, and through fraudulent elections have gotten selected, that the people who are actually affecting the law, who have their fingers determining how statutes are applied and when, are not doing their job. And the union's construct of it, which is why the bar unions are a violation of Sherman antitrust, is particularly in Clay's case, when you have members of their union that are clearly, openly violating not only this law and the statutes, but their administrative codes and rules and procedures, and thus violating the full faith and credit clause. They're violating their fiduciary duties as ens legis, means creatures of the law, at law. You know, when it says in statute, you shall do this, then you shall do it. You don't have an option as a judge or administrator. You do it, you know.
Yeah.
They're just, when they're not following that, their union, the big union body, mm-hmm. is telling all of its members that it must protect those criminals. And it's directing these people on high to convey immunity to overt criminals, and overt and people who are clearly conspiring between the offices of prosecuting attorney and misusing the instruments of the municipal police to, in this particular case where I talked about the
illegal searches and seizures and kidnapping.
Oh my gosh, they're not only that.
Crimes.
You have a prosecution. The case I talked about with them just walking in this house saying you've been declared a drug house. There's no fact of law. In fact, in a hearing from 3 years prior, it was determined that house was not a drug house in any way, shape, or form, and had never been a drug house. So, but the prosecuting attorney of that county tells the the police, if you walk into that house, you seize any children because that's a drug house. Well, that in itself is a crime. The prosecuting attorney has no power to declare somebody's house a drug house with no proof of fact. Okay, so they're allowing in these internal corruptions of these counties, these prosecuting attorneys to libel and slander and to say things about people in their county that are complete lies, that are not founded in fact, and ordering these ignorant municipal cops to go commit international crimes of kidnapping, because kidnapping.
And the federal courts are complicit.
Exactly, because they're allowing that type of behavior to continue openly. In this case, these facts are on the record. It's not even like they have to go look on them. I mean, I was very thorough.
They know. They totally know, and they're completely complicit with it. That's what's so disturbing to me. I have to get going. I got to wrap it up because.
But I just, I want people to continue to be vigilant. But because if we can't get these circuit courts to produce this child, because I want to say this real quick, any child that is taken by CPS unlawfully, by the way they're running it, is a criminally derived property, which means that child was taken and seized as a property, because they consider your child property of the state, through criminal activity. Mm-hmm. If that child was seized through criminal activity by a bar union member or agents of the state operating under the color of law, that is a Sherman Antitrust Act violation and a RICO Act, and that child can be demanded to be returned and or seized by the United States, if the states won't do it, by Title 15. Sherman Antitrust Act, 15 U.S.C. Section 6 allows federal judges to order the seizure of children that have been unlawfully seized by criminal activities in the bar unions of the states. And they need to start doing it, and they need to start doing it now, and they need to do it with Clay today. Amen. And that's what they need to start doing.
Yeah. So you got it here. Word, porthole to justice. I got to go. I got to wrap it up.
I appreciate forum. I just want people to understand we're in Sherman Antitrust Act law. There are requirements in RICO acts that the feds must comply with, and if they don't do it to clean up their own house, we have no government, people. We have nothing. Mm-hmm. We have nothing. And we're going to be in a period of utter chaos for a very long time. We can't tolerate this. This needs to be done. It needs to be done soon. Mm-hmm. Within the next couple months, this whole chaos and lawlessness needs to severely reverse course. Entropy. In large fashion.
Entropy.
There are too many children missing. Okay, and parents being persecuted. I love you.
I love you too. Thanks, Lotus. It's been fun while it lasted. Lunch with Lotus, guys. This has been another episode of Porthole to Justice. Off the cuff. You can subscribe to my show on patreon.com and also on Spreaker, Facebook, and Twitter. All right, everyone. Until my next show, have an awesome day.